welcome back. My name is Constanza and I try out women's workwear so you don't have to. If you're not already following me on Instagram, at Technically a Tech, make sure you go check my account out. Today Mason and I are going to be talking about layering for winter. It's really important to protect yourself when you're working outside because you're going to be doing manual labor in some instances, and as you're sweating, your clothes get wet and in turn you end up getting cold. People can get hypothermia like this. It's quite dangerous if you're not dressed appropriately for the weather that you're working in. So, layering and the materials that you're layering with are really important. I talk a lot about gear that is not always easy to find secondhand or cheap, but I made an effort for this video to try and talk about finding things that are on the cheaper side so that you don't have to spend so much money on your whole winter outfit. You can maybe allocate some more of your funds to getting a really, really good winter jacket. Let's say it needs to be high vis. It's really, really difficult to find that cheap or secondhand. So if you're smart about the items that you buy for your layering pieces, you're not going to be spending a lot of money. On this outfit, I spent a grand total of $57.95 on all the layering pieces. So that's not including the overalls that I wear on top and the jacket that I wear on top, as well as the boots and the Bama socks. But everything else that I'm wearing underneath that's going to keep me really warm all winter was less than $60 Canadian. The first layer that you're going to be putting on is your base layer. This is going to be a thermal layer that's going to wick sweat and make sure that there's no moisture pressed up against your skin while you're exerting yourself. If your shirt is wet while you're working outside in the cold, it's going to be taking away the warmth from your body and you're going to get cold really, really quickly. So you want this base layer to be a skin-tight synthetic material. It's important that it's skin-tight because as you're sweating, your sweat isn't going to trickle down your torso or your arms and get the rest of your skin wet. It's going to be contained to, the areas that you're most sweating in. So synthetic materials would include polyester, merino wool, nylon. It's really important to avoid cotton in your base layer, especially because cotton absorbs the moisture, but the material stays wet and it stays pressed up against your skin. You can adjust the weight of your base layer depending on how cold the weather that you're working in is, as well as depending on the type of activity that you're doing. So if you're exerting yourself quite a bit and doing a lot of physical activity where you're going to be sweating a lot, you could opt for a lighter weight. If you're doing work like a site inspection or things like that where you're standing around more and not sweating or exerting yourself as much, you're going to want to increase the weight. So something a little bit heavier, thicker, that's going to help keep you warm. Next, we're moving on to the middle layer. So this layer is going to be insulating, keeping the warmth trapped. Really good materials for this as well are synthetic. So fleece, wool. I wear a lot of fleece because I am able to find it cheap and secondhand a lot of the time. And you can usually find different weights for this layer as well. So if you're going to be standing around a little bit more, not exerting yourself, not sweating a ton, you can go for a heavier, like a wool or like a heavier, thicker fleece. Versus if you're doing a lot of physical activity and getting really, really hot, you can go for a lighter one that isn't going to make you get hotter. And usually I'll also wear a puffy jacket or like a second insulating layer that will keep me even warmer depending on the work that I'm doing, depending on the temperature that I'm working in. So if it's really, really cold out, I'm going to put on my base layer, I'm going to put on a fleece, I'm going to then put on a puffy jacket on top, and that's all going to really help to wick the sweat as well as keep the heat trapped inside. Now for an outer layer, you're going to want something that is thicker, more of a hard shell. Again, it depends on the work you're doing and the temperatures that you're working in. You're going to want your outer layer to be windproof, waterproof, protect you from the wind, the rain, the snow, so that you're not getting wet from the outside while you're trying to stay warm. So depending on the weather, I will either wear just a thicker insulated jacket on top of all these layers. And sometimes, because usually my jackets that are really warm and insulated aren't necessarily waterproof, sometimes if it's raining or if it's snowing a lot, there's like really wet snow that makes your outer layer wet really quickly. So usually I'll throw on my rain jacket on top of my insulated jacket to protect me from getting wet. Along with that, obviously, you're going to have your socks. I opt for synthetic materials here as well, because the cotton, again, just keeps the moisture against your skin. And on top of that, I'm going to put something that's called the Bama sock. And this sock is typically made out of, again, synthetic materials that will wick the moisture out. If it's really muddy in the area that I'm working or wet, I'll wear rubber boots, and rubber boots tend to make my feet sweat quite a bit. So these Bama socks really help to keep my feet dry. Finally, I'll usually also add on a scarf to make sure that there's no air coming in from the top of my jacket. Hat is also very important. You lose a lot of heat from your head. And really good gloves. It's tough sometimes to have gloves that will still allow you to do your work, but keeping your hands warm is really important. I also usually like to have the hot packs that you open up and they heat up. And usually I'll put them in my pockets to keep my hands warm. When I put them in there, I'll put them in my boots. And sometimes I have sticky ones that I'll stick like on my torso to keep me warm. In conclusion, layer, 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 and it does not have to be expensive. You can go to your local thrift store and find all of these layering pieces easily. It's not something that's very hard to find. And then you can invest your money on good top pieces, like a good insulated jacket and some good insulated overalls that are going to help keep you warm. This is the process I use to stay warm during the winter, and I've worked in very cold temperatures up here in Canada. So following this specific layering outline is going to really help you stay warm. If you have any questions about layering, let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any other tips for anyone that have helped you stay warm in the winter, let us know as well. I always like hearing from you. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll talk to you all soon.